Hey guys, you see my little fat head in the corner here. This Google Doc will be shared with you, so you can kind of listen to my narration on here, just to kind of like highlight some things. This is going to be more about the prompt and thesis and period 3 docs. Tomorrow, what I want to say is that more about the intro and period 4 docs. Wednesday, body, period 5 docs. Thursday, the kind of conclusion and the unicorn point and the period 6 docs. So please study this week and review this week so you can have questions or refine your skills for next week in here. So just be prepared and be on step about calendar. Devote some time. No longer have state classes. You do have your English and you have your bio. So try to devote some time for this. All right. A lot of this stuff you should already know. You should be stuff that I'm going to keep repeating about. But here we go. General tips you should know by now, as you'll see on the screen. Just about general stuff about the essay. Do not use contractions. Don't abbreviate at the beginning. Don't use last names unless they're presidents, and do not use first personal words such as I, me, are, you. These are not going to destroy you, but I mean, just again, practice about not doing that. Do not do what I call state the obvious, which means use this phrase like in this essay or this essay that's shown. And probably for when I do the video sake, it's the kind of, because it is May the 4th and a few of the STEM nerds will appreciate this, I'll do the Darth Vader no gift in there. So that probably would just be a deal breaker for a grader for doing that. Very sophomore, very, what we do when we can't write or find the words, what we usually do is that we put in filler words. Start with the subject, So I'll just pack this in. Start with the subject, meaning this, that if it's document 1 says the French and Indian War, you don't say in document 1. You say the French and Indian War and the resulting in the Treaty of Paris 1783, resulting of Great Britain controlling most of North America, but they wanted to recover, their losses and their resources, particularly they were broke, or they didn't, without money. So you want to start with it. You don't say in this document. You can put that at the end. We'll talk more about that on Wednesday. Questions that are not appropriate for historical essays. Don't be doing putting that question up there. So what did, the colonists really rebel against? Don't do that. Don't start off a question on your intro. Know the difference. That's kind of, this right here is something that you would just expect, like that in here that you would know. Do not use the same words over and over. I use the same words over and over. You can't help it. That's not the worst egregious mistake you can make here. Is do not use the same words over and over. So avoid words like a lot, good, bad. It was very bad. Most, all the people, felt like Great Britain were trying to, overtax them directly. Not, all the people or anything that's absolute. You want to stay away from that. You want to stay away from any absolutes in there. And then a good, that was very bad for, the all the legislatures in the colonies. Always use past tense. Never use a word like they never, thought that Great Britain was going to really treat the colonists like, getting back to mercantilist tradeways, or always avoid poetic phrases. I don't think there's nothing. Do a general spell and grammar check this year. You're going to have to be, that's going to be kind of advantageous for you. So I would expect some of the graders to expect that you shouldn't have too many misspelled words, maybe some grammar errors and grammar. So I would not dwell and obsess over that. General form, right here. So this is the general form. probably want to highlight this here because this is always what you should be thinking about in here is that first paragraph, historical context and thesis at the end of the paragraph, next 2 or 3 paragraphs, body supporting evidence. Please don't ask me how long it should be. It's not about the length. It's not about the quantity. It's the quality of your work. Then in your body, you get the 4 documents, the sourcing, that's the HAP, the, historical situation, the audience, purpose, point of view. You want a description too to get a couple of points of what the document is about. Don't say this document describes, be a little bit more sophisticated than that. Outside info, you guys are going to have a wealth of outside info, and you just make sure that it kind of fits and integrate and it's pretty seamless, and it's all linking back to your thesis. Conclusion paragraph, I told you, this is why people, even in this test on May 15th, it's complex understanding. You're showing corroboration, qualification, modification. Should be in your whole essay, but don't worry about it. We'll talk on this on Thursday if you want to get your shot at it. And so let's just talk about the prompt. And I've said this before. This is the really kind of like, the crux of it if you don't get a good start. If you do not understand the prompt or you do not address what the prompt is about. So, most of the times you will see in the recent kind of APUSH like test, these evaluate or assess. Now, if you get words like evaluate or assess or even, analyze, if you get those, analyze or something like that, it's all about you taking a position. Don't be fooled. Don't be saying like, well, one of the main causes was, the taxes, but another cause was according to truth. But then another cause was, in your thesis statement was the, kind of economic conditions. You pick 1 or 2 of those causes and you stand by that. Don't be fooled by some kind of, assess or analyze. That's what you do. That's what you must do. So, after you kind of like, and then that's what you do. And sometimes I had to read the prompt like, at least 2 or 3 times just to make sure that I'm just taking it easy. I know what's going on. And these are the last DBQ prompts in here. So this is why you see the progressive and imperialism as the last 2 DBQs you probably will not see on your test on May 15th. Doesn't mean you can't study that. The extent to which the progressive movement fostered political change in the United States. See, your knowledge is right here. Mr. Price would be jotting that. If I had the test paper or if I'm typing, I'm already thinking about, oh yeah, that's right after the Gilded Age, Jane Addams. I'm already just thinking in my head Teddy Roosevelt. Change the United States from 1890 to 1920. Anytime you see a date range, this is important, in your body paragraph, in all your supporting paragraphs, you want to stay in that range. You do not get out of that range. Now, maybe you come close. Maybe it's something like 1887. You're talking about the Interstate Commerce Act. It may be excusable in a way that, but for the most part, that's why it's important to have your notes sorted out for time periods in here. So you know what happened for the most part, the events, people, and the vocabulary and terms and IDs of that time. So you've got that. So you sort those notes out. That's what you do for number 1. I tab into your progressive notes. Then you go read the docs, you take quick notes. We do the kind of like sourcing, what's important, outside information. Then you take a position with your thesis. This should all take about 10 to 15 minutes here. Remember, with 5 of the docs, you're probably striking out 1 because it's hard to understand, it's hard to figure out, or it doesn't fit into your rough draft thesis that's already in your mind. Then you come up with a rough draft thesis. This is not maybe your final thesis, but you do. And I says, look, this is mine. When the progressive movement didn't, and you always want to, I recommend finding the counterpoint in your thesis. Like, while the progressive movement didn't sustain as a major influence after World War I, you see, that's going to be the counter to my argument. Because I'm making an argument, and somebody would say, well, the progressive movement was not a big influence. Look what happened. It really died out in the 1920s. And what kind of permanent, really government legislation remained, government programs or government agencies remained after the progressive movement. So, and I end it here, it nevertheless influenced later political reforms in voting procedures, referendum, political participations. So you got more of the 17th Amendment was a pass. And don't worry, I haven't looked at these documents. I'm just trying to come up with something and informing the public of key issues, the muckrakers in here. So, I don't like that. Nevertheless, I might would replace that, as you guys can see. I don't know. Maybe it just had the progressive movement had a major influence. Later political reforms. So it's not a perfect thesis. All you're coming up with is a good enough thesis, an okay thesis. You can actually edit as you're going along in your essay, maybe add something or subtract something, look at it. Maybe you had some time at the end. Maybe the wording wasn't as pristine as you wanted to be, or it wasn't as perfect you wanted to do. So now, did my thesis address all parts of the prompt? Usually the kind of prompts of the recent DBQs have not been very complex. So for the most part, but you be careful of that with an and statement or they list stuff. I'm going to show you some examples of that from the older prompts. Did I take a position? So after the first 10 or 12 minutes, whatever you said on here, you got your rough draft thesis. Think about the little evil Mr. Price on your shoulder. Is that an argument? Is that something that, did you say these are the 2 main causes? These are the 2 main results. That it was African Americans did make progress from the 18th century to the 19th century because of So you have to really ask yourself that before you move on, please. All right? So maybe it took you an extra couple of minutes. It's fine, but don't worry about making the thesis so perfect, but you're satisfied with the content of the thesis. If you look at here, I'll let you guys do this. You see the other prompts are pretty straightforward from the past recent APUSH exams here on the DBQ. Examining civil rights, explain the cause of the rise of women's rights movement in the period 1940-1975. And you're not going to have anything post-1945 anyway. All right, cool. All right, so explain the reason why new conservative right on. I don't even know why I had that on here. I got to do a little quick edit right here, so I don't want it on there. Let's go to the next slide. Older DBQ prompts, and these are older, so probably will not be like this, but it has good examples of requesting a more specific response. Like, to what extent, this is pretty appropriate for today, some of these are. So I'm just going to do it real quick. To what extent did the American Revolution fundamentally change? And your answer be sure to address. And this is something they were like, political, social, and economic effects of the revolution. I don't know if it's going to be that detailed for you, but it's something that you're going to have to come up with in a way. But they used to do in the past be very specific about and all the things that you have to address and what ways they all. You see this political, economic, This word right here, I just want to pay attention to. Let's highlight this for sure. This is. I hopefully you don't get this word because you're not gonna understand it. But it's a kryptonite word. Ideological is your beliefs and values and your ideas of the colonies and some of the, people who call themselves patriots. What were their kind of ideological differences between them, the representatives, legislators, the Patrick Henrys, the John Dickinsons and the Ben Franklins, as opposed to the Parliament in in Great Britain and London. So I hope you don't get that term because it's very similar in a way to somewhat political, but it's more grandiose about ideas of people participating in democracy. So just as a fair warning to you of a potential kryptonite word. Discusses the changing ideas of American womanhood between the American Revolution and the outbreak of the Civil War, while Fox is playing Republican motherhood and cult of domesticity. You can see this is very detailed and kind of tell you on there. You should have the notes upon that. Very good. All right. So, and I had some more, right, about post-Civil War. Probably will be like the past few years, simple, evaluate the relative importance and effects of rise in suburban population. It's something like that nature. It's going to be more something of that. So I would not get very discombobulated, very, you feel like you have to really, really prepare to, to a very complex prompt. But if you do see an and statement, make sure you do both parts and that your thesis and your essay addresses both parts. That could be the sneaky thing here for you. Let's just go through just kind of like what would you for period 3 docs. Look out for the Franklins, the Jeffersons, especially being the primary author of the Declaration of Independence, John Adams, being there at the Continental Congresses first and second, Thomas Paine's, of course, of the Common Sense or the Winter of Our Discontent, really on that December, prevailing influences like Enlightenment, First Great Awakening. I put First Great there, so I'll edit right here real quick. Democratic practices. Oh, there's that awakening. Events like Proclamation, Stamped Act, etc. Okay, we're going to take a look at just a few cartoons, and then I'm going to actually attach some documents to your email and to your Remind that you can kind of look at a little bit more for yourself. And you can look at this definitely for sure because it's going to be shared. I left links to each one. These first two are the most common. I mean, about the Boston Massacre and the Join or Die. And I left links for you guys to, take a look at them a little bit further. And some of them coming up next is going to be the ones that might could throw you off. Like, the American Rattlesnake that's, really doing a good job of defending itself and making inroads 1781 and surrender at Yorktown here, making that representation of that of the revolution. Please, maybe, click on these links and read them. Let me know too if some links are not working for sure. So, and again, this helps you study. Just instead of just studying just all notes and everything. So if you read about it, yeah, some of these cartoons, and I hate to laugh, but you're like, what the fudge is going on? Now you'll never have like this writing right here that's on the bottom here. I hope you can see this right here. I mean, that will be cleared up for you, and everything is going to be in nice little typed work. But you still may not. These older, I tell you, these cartoons can be a little bit confusing. So be prepared for that. You get a lot of, and that's about the Stamped Act being, kind of buried here because, they got rid of Stamped Act. All the tar and feathering ones that you see the Sons of Liberty kind of participating in. That you see that a lot of times on here. Boston Tea Party, that's a mainstay one from the, after they passed the Tea Act on there, so in 1770, so in that Tea Act in 1773, and then they, responded there with the, Boston Tea Party. That's a very common, this kind of, this, you're like, what's going on there? And they're supposedly like, the colonists or people in Boston are suffering in here. So what you do with docs, as you know, you look at the source and you look at the title first. May not give you everything that you need to know, but it will clue you in. So you see this surrounded by cannons. You have to notice like little details on each one. Very good. So, and just want to let you know, all your documents are not cartoons and pictures. There's graphs. This is trying to show you the makeup of, you could get that on one of your DBQs. The wealth, how the colonists were not made up of just common folks. Like really the representatives of people who are rebelling are the upper middle class, the professionals, and the wealthy. It's not somewhat of an agrarian rural uprising, mass uprising by the lower classes. It's not French revolutionary somewhat, like even that was a little bit, bourgeois in an ironic way. I love this one about the slavery being the emancipation over time, right after the revolution. You get a lot of, sometimes you could get a potential DBQ about how did change over time, rights for African Americans, rights for women, voting rights, democratic rights, participation in the United States labor union over time. So you could get a map kind of analyzing those times as well, or just something just straight up showing you. What I like about this one, just real quick, is that this shows you that the imports, value British imports, have increased right after they repealed the Townshend Acts right there, but it was going down before. And then you get the Tea Act again, and it really goes down at this point. So, and it really takes a nosedive after they passed the, what we call the coercive acts, but until the colonists didn't tolerate it. So it's a good graph to know, you should know. This last one, just kind of like the colonial reaction. This is more informative for you guys. You're not going to get something like this. This is pretty, basic and kind of more middle school. Like, that's just more of an info for you guys. Again, if you have any questions, because, just take a look, and I'm repeating and reinforcing a lot of things, and I keep saying, schedule a time, because a regular time, and then so you can be done with your studying each day. I just keep encouraging you to do that, because if not, you're not going to be as prepared as you should be. You have a great time to really knock this test out of the ballpark, being online, being on the computer, open notes. All right, so you guys have a good day, and hopefully some of you hung with me, and then you can also look at this as far as yourself, because it'll be shared with you. See you guys.